Help Save Our World Speak, number 82. Choose your words wisely. Becoming a wise guide and teacher begins with self-mastery. You do this by practicing your skills as a role model, guide, and teacher. Hello, I'm Dennis Moore, your host for the next hour. Welcome to our 82nd Help Save Our World Speak online speakers meeting, where we are changing the conversation to change our world. These meetings are a follow-up from our book, Beyond the Age of Ignorance, The Quest for the Truth, Change, and Transformation. Our vision is to create a love-based, happy, healthy, and sustainable future for all life on Mother Earth. We believe that the only way to help save our world is to empower you with the truth, knowledge, skills, and wisdom that you need to change your life so you can help us help save our world. We cannot do this alone. That's why we're empowering you to join us. So together, we can make a meaningful difference in our world and create a magical future for our children and all life on our home planet, Mother Earth. Let's begin with introductions. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm here to help save the world the best way I know how, and that's through communication and helping others understand how they can improve and where they can do better. I'm doing my best to create new recipes and promote sustainable eco-villages around the planet.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Kurt?
Yeah, I'm Kurt. Today I'm in Thermopolis, Wyoming, a beautiful part of the United States where nature is abundant and you can see where people are making efforts towards sustainability because they understand what they have. So I participate in these conversations because conversations are the way that we stimulate our minds, question what we understand, and learn new things. And I think it's important for us to do that so that when we have conversations with others, we can carry along the thoughts from today.
Excellent. Thank you, Kurt. Brendan?
My name is Brendan. I'm from South Africa. I am part of this movement as well as conversation in order to change the world around us, to help get to a point where everybody is self-sustaining, self-preserved, and we can look after one another through, for example, trading of vegetables and whatnot.
Excellent. Thank you, Brendan. That's another interesting conversation, which is really relevant to us at the moment, because we are literally experiencing what end times would be with sort of riots and protests and looting and the collapse of that sort of economic system around us in Natal in South Africa right now. So it's really been like a practice run of what would happen and how we have to be prepared for it. So really interesting conversation that we're in the midst of living right now. But it's not our prepared meeting. So we will go into this next thing. I just want to go through this initial thing to get sort of create a context in which to explain, to go through the words have weight, if you don't mind. When teaching others, always remember your precise use of words matter. Misuse or inappropriate words are often misinterpreted by people from many different religions and cultural backgrounds, so choose your words wisely. Some words have weight. They carry many implied meanings, and their thoughtless use can have many undesirable effects on what you're trying to impart, teach, or create. So be impeccable with your words. The first of Don Miguel, his 4 agreements based on ancient Toltec wisdom. Don't just thoughtlessly copy others who use words carelessly, especially when you're singing songs repeatedly, because those words become imprinted in your mind and in your lexicon. Now, a lexicon is like for the individual, is the set of words that you use, the vocabulary of a person, the language, or a branch of knowledge. That's like a group of words that you commonly use. Or a lexicon could be a whole language for a civilization like English or whatever, and the current language that they use. Saying just anything will do more harm than good to our world. Using the words like God or Lord or other terms with similar meanings is a colossal mistake. Or exclamations like, oh my God. If you find yourselves doing so, stop yourself at, oh my, or try and change it to saying like, gee whiz, or wow, that's amazing, or that's incredible. Use a more expansive variety of words. And if you don't have the idea of what words to use, get your thesaurus out and dictionary, and steer clear of religious terminology. You see, paradigms are very much inculcated into the language that people use, or have their own particular terminology in a particular language. So it's not just religions. It's like, if you want to steer clear of empowering mathematics and science, say, then steer clear of using the terminology that they just randomly use or they use within their lexicon. So try and be very, very aware of your language. Some gurus, okay, so now this is something that really bothers me. Some gurus and other people generalize the word God to have many meanings, like the light, the universe, Lord, God, the all-powerful, or whatever. They generalize. They do this often to cover many different groups of people and to garner acceptance and a greater following of this larger audience. Generalizing like this might be politically expedient, or a politically expedient idea. However, it is an unacceptable compromise. Some people misuse and misunderstand the meaning divine. Many just use it because it's a powerful word, creating those mushy feelings in others, also making them think that you know something that they don't, that you are more spiritual than them. Then some gurus tout infinite possibilities. Be wary of thoughtless use of language. And remember, exaggerations and imprecise use of language will affect your credibility in the long run. People are very judgmental. If you say something that's not really true, you'll lose your following and you'll lose their respect. So also beware of using dimensions to explain spatial or other concepts. Dimensions and abstract mathematical concepts require starting points, beginnings, and ends, which we know is fundamentally untrue in our connected, infinite universe and relative universe. So where would a beginning be and where would an end be? Its use empowers mathematicians and it leads to the incorrect perception of space and reality. Like the concept that mathematics is the language of the universe. That's absolute nonsense, you know. Then remember, there are no absolute facts. Things are just, to a greater extent or to a lesser extent. No two things are identical. Similar, yes, but not the same. Instead, think of reality in impressions, feelings, approximations, complex patterns, shades of gray or varieties of hues, all just perceived qualities of reality. There are no absolute truths. There is a more significant or more general truth which we speak of in this book. There is perceived personal truth. However, the truth seems to be known intuitively and is general and more so than not, or a greater truth. Examples of the importance of word choices are given below in the notes section. Your skillful use of language, breadth of vocabulary, good grammar, and selective use of words to convey precise meanings to empower humanity and life is a foundational requirement for us to succeed in this help save our world process and to create that happy, healthy, and sustainable future we are in search of, or we are creating. Using just any old words, you might be defeating the whole object of the exercise. Instead of creating a fair, happy, healthy, and sustainable future where we all thrive, you could be furthering the agenda of the corrupt, sick pyramid schemes. The words we use matter. So think carefully, expand your vocabulary of descriptive words and choose your words wisely. Okay, it's open to the floor.
Well, of course, I have something to say about words, don't I? Don't we all? So there are many dynamics that go on in a communication, and of course, we as human beings predominantly use words and language, and we're not taught. At least most of us seem to be not have been taught to use our words to precisely convey what our thought is so that another gets through the communication the same thought that I'm having. So I agree with you fully about choosing our words, learning how to speak, increasing one's vocabulary so that we can create distinctions that are as clear to each other as we possibly can. Now, having said that, we all develop different ideas about what words mean from when we were young, and what energy, what other concepts we put onto a word. So even the word, I use this often, but even a word like happy, if we right now said, write down what your definition of happiness is or being happy, I would bet that each of us have a different answer. So what we do in language is try to approximate a commonality of understanding, right? The other aspect is not everybody is up to just sharing their information. Words and communication are also used to manipulate, to dominate, to control, to deceive, to whatever, and both positive and negative aspects of communication. So when we are present to what is actually going on, when we are listening to understand, this is an old one, I think it was from Stephen Covey, seek first to understand and then to be understood. So as we listen to someone else's words, we can then understand in ourselves how they think, and then maybe answer them in a channel, a word channel, let's say, that would make more sense than if we were just throwing our own opinion back without any feedback loop going on. So, I mean, this is a huge conversation, obviously, and I'm just putting out a couple of ideas here. So, we'll expand it as we go on, I'm sure, in the next few minutes, but just wanted to put those ideas out as well.
Excellent. I love those concepts. Wow. There's, like you say, this is an enormous concept, idea or concept. I mean, they have linguistics, which are whole scientific studies of the use of language, and many other fields of study all around this communication and so on. So yeah, it's immense. But I think what we're trying to do is, as well as possible, communicate the love-based philosophy that and everything based on the essential wisdom that we've discovered on this journey. And it's so easy to slip off the edge and be imprecise and not clearly communicate that by just being careless, really. It's carelessness. So bearing that in mind, Alex?
I have nothing to add yet.
Okay, no problem. Brendan, same thing?
Yeah, same thing.
All right, that's interesting. It's like when people right throughout from the very beginning have been using certain things and they've been saying certain things, and I'm like, but I haven't said anything. So now I feel like I'm taking this opportunity to say it, So now this concept of some words have weight. And so beware of their use. Lies are not just in what is said or what you might say. Lies are in words used because words have meanings. Now, this is a very controversial term, but we have to look at it because it's like the epitome of everything we're trying to change. For example, the word God, G-O-D, 3 letters, pretty simple, has a vast array of meanings and vastly complex implications for different perspectives. From many different perspectives in dominant cultures, the word God implies a male, ethereal being in the sky who created everything, controls everything, omnipotent, all-powerful, omnipresent, everywhere all the time, the seer of everything, the creator of everything that exists, where it actually implies a male-dominated societal system with the absolute centralization of power into pyramid schemes. These male-dominated pyramid schemes, religions, and belief systems are the philosophy of the takers, blind believers, warmongers, slavery, divide and rule, fear, hate, segregation, elitism, private property ownership, greed, hierarchy, absolutism, suppression of others, enslavement, especially of women. From this alone, you can see that there are many, many, many implied meanings. Take out the dictionary and have a look what the word God means, and get out many different dictionaries and you'll have many different interpretations. And then go into all of their different writings of these different religious groups, and you'll see their descriptions of the meaning of this 3-letter word. The one word also symbolizes many branches of the whole tree of male-dominated religions, and many of them, Catholicism and Methodists and Church of England and so on and so on and so on. They're just like, there's so many of them. So one word also symbolizes the many branches, the whole tree of male-dominated religions and institutions built upon the male God concept and its values and beliefs. So every time you make use of that 3-letter word, whether you intend doing it or you naively do it or you accidentally do it, it comes with all of that and much, much more baggage. You don't need to be imprecise and empower that system just by making use of that word. You literally empower that system because now people tend to focus on and gravitate towards that. And that's not what you want to do. You want to say, hey, listen, this is the truth. This is about love and kindness. And we don't use that word because that belongs to that. So we use Mother Nature. We use love-based universe or whatever. We use words that describe the wonderful, sustainable, love-based world that we want, not the paradigm of hate and fear. The same goes for many words that carry religious lies and baggage. The whole philosophy that is, of course, that philosophy is killing our world. Whole philosophies hang on seemingly simple words and language. So be wary of using such words with ethereal or religious combined meanings. In this case, I'm thinking of words like soul and spirit and divine. You might not perceive them as having implied religious meanings. However, you're not talking to yourself, you're talking to other people. And other people raised in religious backgrounds might only perceive those words to have their religious connotations. So you have no idea how they perceive what you're saying. A clear understanding of your communication's meanings requires the use of unambiguous words as possible. So be impeccable with your words and language. Be precise, be clear with what you say and how you say it. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second. Anyone want to say anything?
OMG, do I have a lot to say about God? And just look at how that has become and was, I think, probably one of the, after LOL, one of the first little acronyms used everywhere. So yeah, there's a lot to say about how we use and refer to God, and allow that whole religious system to get into all of our language. I had a number of thoughts, Dennis, as you were speaking. I think just that the prevalence of religious words and then the use of religious words to hide behind our real meaning. And we see it in politics, certainly, but in sociological settings as well. And I'm going to move just a little bit off track here. Yesterday, in listening to a podcast, I heard a guru, one that's pretty well known, was asked, so there is no such thing, the conversation came to what is truth, and then is there absolute truth? And the questioner said, I don't think that there is absolute truth anywhere. It's all a matter of perspective. And the guru responded, absolute truth exists. It's just that your reality changes. And I know that's a big thought to handle here, but what I'm thinking is, as we look at using the terminology of religion and absolutism and things like that, we're referring to concepts that we don't even know what they mean and if it relates to anywhere in the universe or not, right? So we have our own reality, which is made up of our experience and our learnings and things like that. And we put it together and think, okay, I get what reality is. And then there's a reality that we suppose, right, that we imagine. And what has happened, certainly in the use of God and religious terminology, is that it's been infused into our everyday reality as if, yeah, of course, this is what it is. It's the truth. When we actually, and I don't know anybody that does, have a hold or the franchise on what is absolutism and universal truth and God, etc. So you're right. When we hear those words, we're listening to a couple of things from the other person. One is that they are transmitting it as a belief. And then number two, how deeply do they believe it? Or are they just spouting the pablum that they've been taught to spout? Because very few people have sat and thought about what do these words mean and the concepts behind them. Even the word impeccable, and by the way, I love Don Miguel Ruiz and the Fourth and the Fifth Agreement, which if we get a chance, we'll mention later. But be impeccable with your word. Well, the word impeccable means to not sin. Peccable comes from peccadillo, right? Which is basically sin. So even the root of that is be impeccable with your word is certainly calling forth the ultimate and saying don't sin with your word. So what does sin mean, and what does being impeccable mean? And he explains it in his book pretty well. But and actually, I'll work on that in a minute. And I think that's what's so important about that particular agreement is we use our words to create both internally our thought system and externally what we want to have happen out in the world. And if we start to manipulate it and massage it and be lazy about it, or just use memed words and thoughts in order to express ourselves, then we're not creating from self. We're self with a big S, the love generated world that we want to create. But we're creating from a haphazard conglomeration of stuff that carries the conversation forward somehow. And many times, as you mentioned, is probably more hurtful than helpful. So I'll leave that there.
Wow, that's awesome stuff. I bring up some of those concepts, but I love the way you expressed it. You expressed it extremely well, and brought up a whole lot of extra amazing concepts there. Alex, Brennan?
I feel completely out of my comfort zone here. So yeah. Hi, there are words out there. Okay, bye.
Okay, no problem, Brennan.
Well, I think in terms of the words having meaning, having power over not only religions and stuff, but people's emotions, people's livelihood, and you got to watch what you say. You could destroy someone's life in a matter of a few words.
Like they say, the pen is mightier than the sword. It's basically the idea that words have so much power. And there's that song, I think If by Bread, way back then. If a picture paints 1,000 words, then why can't I paint you? Just the concept that words have so much power, and then of course words in terms of a picture, like words also have that. What is the word for words that paint pictures? It's a metaphor. So lots of words, metaphors, they literally are picture words. They create this image in your mind of a reality. So words are so powerful. It's absolutely incredible. Carry on.
I just like to speak in both what Alex and Brendan said in their contributions. So Alex, feeling that you're, I think you said over your head, or out of your element. I don't remember your exact words, unfortunately. However, that expression was pretty authentic, and listening to it, what I heard from you is, I'm not at the same pace in this conversation as the conversation seems to be, right? Now, that's my interpretation of you. And so then my response would be, then what would it take to have you? You use words, you use words beautifully. I've heard you speak many times. So just a question. And then for Brendan, you use the phrase, words can ruin someone's life. Just a couple of words. I think it was ruin. And listen to what you said. And do you believe that? Now, I know, and I've experienced it in my life as well, when somebody said something to me, I took it as very hurtful. Words didn't do that. My willingness to accept somebody else's definition of me is what caused the pain. Because I allowed words that were negative or demeaning, or again, non-loving, to take residence in my head and my heart. Not literally the thing that goes ba-bump, ba-bump, but in that heartful aspect of being and feeling. So as we say these things, just understand, we're throwing out easy catchphrases. I'm over my head, and words can kill somebody's life, or words can ruin someone's life. Just listen to what you said, because I listened to what you said. and I'm trying to process where you coming from and do you believe that or not? And if you do believe it, then I'd like to have a further conversation about what is it about that phrase that you believe, and are you willing to maybe shift so that you don't allow those things to happen? Now, again, I'm just giving you a little bit of coaching here. However, this is the level that human beings really get to speak in, rather than just say, yeah, right. Yep. You're at your element, and yeah, words can kill. Yeah, no question about it. And we just agreed on memes, but we didn't agree on how we about to live our life with each other in this moment. And is it by throwing memes? And again, I'm not knocking you guys. I'm just telling you my experience, by throwing catchphrases at each other, or by authentically expressing what's going on with us in the moment. And I take your memes as authentically expressing yourself, and I get that there's more underneath it than just the level of words that you just said. So I'm willing for feedback from you. Again, understand it's just my interpretation, and looking to create a conversation that does more than just allow us to push air through our larynx. So any feedback?
Okay, I'll go. First off, my knowledge of the English language in general is very limited. I can communicate with you guys on a general basis, but you know, you guys go about like what does happy really mean? And you know, I've got a whole bunch of words literally written out on a piece of paper in front of me, just positive words. And I'll go through them. Delight, glowing, top, up, trust, dazzle, delightful, generous, bliss, happy, funny, hope, rejoice, and there's many, many, many more. If I had to go into the details of each of those words, I'd probably find some religious or negative understanding or backing to them in some way or another. Do I mark them off the list? No. Why? Because of the way they make me feel. And if they make me feel positive, then generally that my understanding is that I would accept them into my life. But now I could also go and say those same words to someone else, and they'll be like, wow, that's really religious. Don't be saying things like that, especially if you're not religious. And then I'm like, well, that's not how I perceive it, because that's not how I've been brought up to justify those words or understand those words or even see those words in any form of negative context. I might change them, or I might stay with them based on the way they make me feel. With your perception of what Brendan said, and my just general assumption to that is, for someone to be hurt by words, they've got to feel them. And it's their belief, their understanding, their motivation behind the comments, their negative feelings towards it, which cuts them deeper than what the words actually may or may not have been intended in the beginning. So, we as humans, we have filters on, and our filters are our beliefs, a structure, our upbringing, our vocabulary list, etc. And these filters filter through the words to the feelings and what we feel underneath. So you say to me, rejoice. If I'm a very religious person, it may be me rejoicing in a church, clappy hands, shouting, speaking in tongues, throwing myself down on the floor, having epileptic fits if need be. Or it could be rejoice, not having a religious background, having extreme fun with my son out in the sun. And that is my feeling at the end of the day on how I perceive that word. So I think context, not context, somewhere in between. That's my conversation.
Okay.
Can I respond? Can I respond to that? I actually way back, like at the beginning of this whole meeting, there was like one statement that I said, you're not communicating to yourself, you're communicating to other people. And so the importance of a word like rejoice being like something that you should be aware of as being like used in more religious connotations and situations than the other words you used. I mean, all of the other words were like, to me, happy words were like, yay, amazing words. But then you are aware that when you use the word rejoice, there's something sinister. It's something that's like belongs to those people who are jumping up and down and clapping, singing along to the hymns and everything. It's like that's what we have to be aware of. Because the moment you use that word, you've now empowered that system, which empowers that God system, which empowers the destruction of our planet. It's like whether we think we don't know what the words mean or not, it's like we generally do know sort of their associations. We don't have to know precise meanings. We just know that that word's used there, so we don't use. It's like spirit and soul and all of those things. We're just like, okay, spirit. I mean, the concept of spirit, it's just something ephemeral and whatever. And it should be a common word that we could use all over the place, but it has very, very, very strong links to religious belief systems. So do you want to use the word that empowers a system that's killing the world? No, you don't want to do that. You've got to be careful. I'm not saying like stop speaking because, you might not get, you might say the wrong word. It's like we're all going to make mistakes. We're going to say the OMG or something silly just randomly because it's being programmed into our lexicon our whole lives. But the less we do it, the better, and the more we communicate with things like your essence, your life force, or other words instead of the religious connotation words. And there's so many of them. It's like whenever you feel like you've got a word like that, just put it into your thesaurus and look at all of the other possibilities. There's so many other possibilities of words you could have used. So it's a reprogramming. It's not something that's just like, oh, I've got it. It's something that you have to like really focus on and work on. So carry on.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, on that, there's a number of words that fall in place. Again, we've all learned these words somehow in our life, and they have been used for centuries and many of them eons. And sometimes it's just an easy shorthand for us to explain what's going on. Now, I used to live in dictionaries and would have fun going from word to word and finding that definition, finding another word and going there. And I even owned the Oxford English Dictionary with my little magnifying glass for decades. Something like rejoice, right? It definitely has religious connotations, I admit. So just to break it apart, it's re and joyce, correct? Re is again, at least as far as my understanding, as a prefix. And then joyce, I'm just going to say it's joy. So rejoicing is rejoy, is experiencing joy again. So instead of rejoice, one could say, I'm joyful again, that this happened or that I had that thought or that I met this person. I'm joyful again that this is my status in life or whatever, where you might use the word rejoice. So yeah, there are workarounds from it. And oftentimes the workaround brings up a different connotation, maybe even worse than the one we were using, worse as far as promoting a religious thought process. So yeah, we just need to pay attention to our thought process, what's coming out of our mouth, and then listening. By the way, the fifth agreement from Don Miguel Ruiz is, and I don't have it quoting, but question everything, including what you tell yourself. and the conversations that we have internally that then drive the conversations we have externally, those are critical for us to listen to. And most of us don't back up and say, why am I about to say this? Partly because we don't have the time. We're in a conversation. Things work too quick. There's a give and take. And if I catch a breath, the other person jumps in. So we're in this fast moving world where we don't have a pause between thoughts and answers. We go, yeah, I got an answer to that. And that's part of the issue, is that we're not slowing down enough to listen to both our conversations and each other's conversations. Now, I'll leave that as one thought. I just have one other I want to add. The use of particular words, and I heard it with you, Dennis, in your conversation a few minutes ago. The words could, should, would, filler words that express this as truth. When I could have done that, but that doesn't mean that that's the truth. You know, I should have done that, but that doesn't mean that would have worked out any better than what I did, right? We use them to almost enforce and affirm that my thought or what's coming after it is the truth. So we get to be careful of that. And then just one other, by the way, I do this in the classes that I teach. This languaging is a very important part. The other thing is to be careful of your connective words, and, but. So whenever you're about to say but, use the word and. Just take it out and put the word and in, and then watch how the rest of your sentence changes. Because what you're doing is you're not negating what was said prior. You're saying this is this, and this is also a possibility. So that the concept of yes and, yes, I hear you, and here's my other thought, rather than, but that's not the best answer. It just negates what somebody else just expressed to you, meaning you're negating their expression of their belief in that moment. So those are just a couple of the filler words that we all use from time to time and don't even notice it. However, I know when I learned and versus but, the quality of my conversation changed immensely, and the quality of my thinking changed, because I wasn't allowed then to negate that and create a fresh thought process. It was my then opportunity to include what was said and work with that to carry it somewhere else. So by doing that, I'm including the other person. I'm not negating them. I'm not making them wrong. And I think that's critical. Even if you totally disagree with what they said, yes, and it will change the way, well, I've already said it a few times. And I think, to my mind, it brings about that more positive, loving, inclusive, progressive world, rather than let's get stuck in right and wrong. That's it.
All right. I love that. Okay. So let's just quickly look at that one, the yes and. Many years ago, I had an editor with my first, well, the first book that I published, which was Gifts. And she said to me, don't ever use the word but, because everything that you've set up to that point then just is like, it just doesn't exist in that person's mind anymore. You've just dumped it. Yep. So if you want this continuation of thought, then don't ever use the word but. Use however, whatever, just other ways of, other conjunctions, other ways of linking the two statements together, or two ideas together, or whatever. So I love that. I love that. Yes, and then, Brendan, it's on your one. The thing is if we are creators and we are being positive and using love and whatever, and we perceive what other people are saying to us with a more love-based attitude, then we don't feel like the victims. We don't feel like somebody is like trying to hurt us. We're like, oh my gosh, that's an interesting idea. maybe I do need to look at my behavior, you know. So as creators with words, we have this incredible power just to use positive, loving, just language, and that literally creates the world around us. It creates the happiness, and we find that we get in the car and we're like, yay, we're going to sing along. And just that choice to have that happy, loving, together tone and everything, we create magic, absolute magic. Or we can be in a bad mood, like I was a while back. And oh my gosh, being in that car was really, really, really difficult. And that was me not being careful with my attitude and my words, and or not even saying any words, can be extremely destructive. So we all need to learn and practice those skills of being the most positive, loving creators we can be. So that was on Brennan's idea. And then the truth. Each and every one of us has a perspective of reality and the world around us and everything. Are there fundamental truths? I would say yes. It's like through going through this course, we know that if we carry on with the trends of our behavior as humanity into the future, we will literally come to the end of our world. We would literally kill ourselves and kill our world, and we are killing everything. It's like those are the trends. And the truth is, carry on with what we're doing, and it will be the end. So, and the problem is to me, I know that to be the truth because I've gone on this journey. And to you, you've been on this journey, you know, oh my gosh, we can't keep on doing what we're doing. Can't keep on polluting. We can't keep on putting carbon in the atmosphere because ultimately we are killing ourselves and killing our world. But you get that. But now for everyone else out there, the air in New York City is not that bad. It was in the Industrial Revolution because we had all these factories and everything was disgusting. It was like the smog and everything. But the airs now in this new in technological society is so much cleaner in New York City. It does smell a bit, and it's you wouldn't go and swim in the Hudson and so on. But it's so much better, and the more technology we develop and the more we use it, the better our society becomes. And that's their truth, because that's what they've been told by media and propaganda and so on. Nobody is teaching them what we know to be true. So what is the truth? Their truth? Well, to them, that is their truth. But we need collectively to create this help save our world truth, to create this, oh my gosh, if we don't change our behavior, we're literally running up towards end times. And we can see it happening around us with the societal collapses and everything that's happening around the world. So what is the truth? The truth is real. All right. But to what truth do we choose to make real and to keep us all alive on this planet? It's like there's so many things. We are the air we breathe. We are the water, the whatever, the nutrients, the whatever. We are of this world, within this world. That's truth. But for others, they believe that they are separate individuals from this all, and they are the masters, and they can control and whatever. And they don't see the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is that we are of Mother Nature, within Mother Nature, and we depend on perpetuating her life to ensure that we live on. That's truth. So what is the truth? Their truth, our truth? I would say ours. Kurt?
Yes. And so I cut my video off just for a second because I wanted to. I carry with me about 6 or 8 books on this trip. The Fifth Agreement of Don Miguel Ruiz is one of them.
Wow.
And actually, so when you gave Brendan some feedback, one of the agreements, Brendan, and by the way, all of them work with each other. They're not independent. One of the 4 agreements is don't take anything personally. And so when somebody is not being impeccable with their word, which is one of the other agreements, and they're throwing it at you, you don't have to take it personally. I mean, you can take it as just their perspective. It could be the truth, but, and I use that purposely, but anything that anyone says to you or a comment about you or at you is their interpretation based on their mindset in that moment of you. It doesn't mean that's who you are. And what you do is not who you are. So if you made a mistake and somebody criticized you or called you a name or something, and I'm just making this up, I'm not saying that was your particular experience, it doesn't mean that it's you. It's just about something you did and the way somebody else reacted to it. If they responded to it, which is pretty much what we're talking about here, and using your words appropriately, then they're going to take the time to think, what's the best outcome I could create using my words? And it might be, and again, Brendan, I'm making this up, but if you'd made a mistake or an error and somebody said, Brendan, that wasn't quite the correct way to do it. Would you like to learn that? Think of the difference that person could have made in your life. Again, not that that was your situation, rather than, you dummy, what the hell are you doing? Both of them are comments about your action, right? One is forwarding and creates connection and communication, and the other one is negative and is aimed at dominance and control. So as we look at, and again, if you don't have the 5th agreement, go to your library. If you can't get it at the library, let me know. I'll find a way to drop ship it to you. It's well worth your read. Again, it's not the 10 commandments. It's not the be all end all. However, it is a set of agreements with yourself. That's what the agreements are. They're with yourself first, and then you can apply them to others. They're effective ways from which to live. And that's what we're looking for here, right? Is to create a distinction between what works and is progressive and forwarding and sustainable, and what doesn't work and is demeaning and destructive and, unsustainable. It will be the end. So those are my comments. I just wanted to clear up a couple of things. And since Miguel Ruiz entered into the conversation early, I just wanted to acknowledge the impact he's had on my life. And of course, there are many other teachers who have that as well. But it's just a simple set of 5 agreements now. By the way, the last one, let me read it correctly. Actually, I looked at it a minute ago because I wanted to be sure of my wording on it. I'll look it up again to give it to you, but basically it was that. He also uses the word "but" in the agreement. So when I find it, I should have it right in front of me here, and I'm not finding it, so I'll get to it in a minute.
Okay, so let me just finish this little section here, and then, then you can search for that. Okay, so also be careful of how you preface what you say. Beware of absolutes and superlatives like always, everyone, everybody, everything. Instead, use more inclusive statements like more often than not, generally, or in many cases, or sometimes, and so on. And then, really important, exaggeration is lies, or exaggerating are lies, or exaggerations are lies. And others perceive it to be so. So try to tell your stories as honestly as you can. A few added inches doesn't matter to your story. Be careful, inches or feet or whatever. It's like, if the fish is this big, then it's this big.
Is that a male-dominated comment?
Oh.
Well, I've been told.
Okay, that's enough.
So many women that
that's enough.
It's not the size that counts. So. So.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you
I
can
can make an
absolute
statement. I can definitely make an absolute statement. I absolutely never, ever, ever follow a recipe completely to the T. So that's an absolute statement that is 100% correct up until this point in my life.
Yeah, it's your truth. Absolutely.
Need to be careful. It's my truth. It's my truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think
Yeah,
we need to be careful
but
of absolute statements, but
yeah. Well, that's it. Also be aware of absolute facts. There are generally no such things in context of our connected reality. Facts are also usually based on oversimplification and generalizations. It's like, this knife it's absolutely sharp. But we know that at a subatomic level, there's no such thing as sharpness, everything's round. So, or vibrating or whatever. So it's like, at what point is it round and not sharp? And what point is it sharp? So it's like, and then a lot of things in science and so on, they use frames of reference. It's like, I don't know, an object of a certain mass will fall at a certain speed and like 9.8 whatever meters per second in gravity on our Earth. But the point is like, if it's a pound of feathers that's falling, it'll fall at a different rate to a pound of lead or a pound of gold or whatever. And because there are a lot of other variables, there is the height, the distance from the planet. There are a lot of variables, like falling through the air. There's a lot of wind resistance and so on. So feathers will like take their time to get down, no matter what you can't force them to fall at that speed. So what is the fact? Well, if it is a vacuum, which is the frame of reference, then pound of feathers, pound of lead, pound of gold, bam, fall at that rate, right? But we don't live in a vacuum here on planet Earth. There is a lack of air out in space, and in that sense, it will accelerate and travel at whatever speed. But the moment it enters a different context, a different frame of reference, it's not the same. So be aware of absolute facts. What goes up must come down. Only here, like only on planet Earth, it's like, and not even that, it's like if it goes up high enough, it won't come down. It was clear. So, yeah, there are lots of different things. So, aware of absolute dualistic thinking. Now, this is like a really important one. Like when I first got to America, I was horrified because everyone is like good and evil and right and wrong and it's the law and blah, blah. It's like, oh my gosh, heaven and hell. And it's, no, stop speaking to me in these yeah.
You're breaking up completely.
Okay, so
the last five minutes.
I heard it cleanly, Dennis.
So beware of absolute facts. We went through it. Oh, so it's more than likely recorded well. So we don't live in dualistic opposites, heaven and hell, good and evil, right and wrong. We don't live in a world like that. Remember, our reality isn't based on absolutes. It's generally composed of, to some extent, nuances. It's not, as we can see, so in the yin and yang symbol, it symbolizes to some extent, more so than not so. It's like those two teardrops in the yin and yang, they can be bigger or smaller within the circle, but also within the white, there's black. And within the black, there's white. And that's the realization that it's not two opposites, and it's not the one opposite is more dominant than the other. It's the realization that even within the opposites, there is the other. So it's the concept of masculine and feminine. It's like, to what degree is somebody male or female. There are certain, to what degree are you creative or a creator or a destroyer? There's nuance there. It's not one state or the other. It's somewhere in between. You're somewhat masculine. Some people are more masculine than others, and less and more feminine than others. It's this nuance to our world that we've got to be so critically aware of. All right. So, Kurt, you want to come back with that Don Miguel Ruiz thing?
Sure. I think it's a pretty good cap for what we've been talking about today. So the chapter in the Fifth Agreement is called The Power of Doubt. And the Fifth Agreement says, be skeptical, but learn to listen. Now, in my book, I've crossed out but and put and in there just to forward it. What he's saying is, well, I'll read it. It says, you know that humans speak with symbols and that symbols aren't the truth. Symbols are only the truth because we agree, not because they are really the truth. The second half of the agreement is learn to listen, and the reason is simple. When you learn to listen, you understand the meaning of the symbols that people are using. You understand their story, and the communication improves a lot. Then perhaps instead of all the confusion among humans who inhabit the earth, there will be clarity. So one of the things that happens, and certainly Dennis, you as a public speaker know, we can put so much energy on the words, which are symbols, that people will be baffled by it and just say, well, it's coming from him. It's said with force and emotion. I believe it. And not to you, Dennis, but just that you're the example here, it's like oftentimes we accept things as truth because they're coming from somebody that we've already ceded power to. We've given them respect. We have trust of them. And many times it's not the case. Many times they have ulterior motives. So the idea of whatever you hear, be skeptical. It doesn't mean, deny stuff. It just said, let me think about that for a minute, rather than to swallow it whole. And then the second half of it is learn to listen to what the intent of the communication really was, and does it fit you? Because you are ultimately the one who decides what your beliefs and your truths are. It's your life, as far as we can tell, on this planet in this form. And so it's up to you to decide how you want to experience and interpret absolutely anything that comes your way. So I'll just leave it there. Be skeptical and learn to listen.
Excellent. I think that's
their meaning and your interpretation. Yeah.
Yeah. Quite often we miss one another. We just like one person saying something, but what's being heard is totally different. It's like, so we're miscommunicating because we're not listening, as you're saying.
Yeah.
And we're not hearing what the intent is because we're not listening. We're so in our own heads and in our reactions that we're not truly hearing. So sure. I love that. I think that's exceptional. And thank you very much. I think we've reached the end of this hour. Thank you, everyone. This was awesome. I love this concept we can talk on forever and ever. And yeah, we'll call that a day. So bye, everyone. Bye, Alex. Bye, Brendan.